You pick up a prescription, it's a pill you've been taking for years. Same drug, same dose, same little orange bottle. But this time, the pharmacist says your insurance changed, and the out-of-pocket is $487. You stand there doing the mental math, rent due Friday, car payment next week, and you ask, almost to yourself, how does a pill cost $500? The pharmacist shrugs. It's not their call. And that moment, that quiet, specific confusion is what this video is actually about. The manufacturing cost of most common drugs is genuinely small. We're talking cents to a few dollars per pill in many cases. The raw materials, the compression, the coating, the packaging, the physical act of making the drug is often the cheapest part of the entire chain. So where does the price come from? It doesn't come from the factory. It comes from everything that happened before the factory. Pharmaceutical companies spend enormous amounts developing drugs, not just the ones that succeed, but every compound that failed along the way. Most drug candidates don't make it. They fail in trials, they fail in testing, they get abandoned 5 years in. The ones that do make it carry the financial weight of all the ones that didn't. R&D costs are real. That part is not a myth. But here's where it gets complicated. Patents give a drug company roughly 20 years of exclusivity from the time a patent is filed. And since a significant portion of that time gets eaten up by clinical trials and regulatory approval, by the time a drug actually hits pharmacy shelves, effective market exclusivity might be closer to 10 to 12 years. During that window, no one else can legally make the same molecule. No competition. One price. Take it or leave it. And if you're someone who needs the drug to function or survive, leave it isn't really an option. Here's the part most people don't think about. The price isn't set to recoup development costs. Not exactly. The price is set based on what the market can bear, which, in the US especially, is a very different calculation. Insurance complicates this further. When most people have some kind of coverage, they see a copay, not the full sticker price. The drug can be listed at $500, but the insured person pays $40. They feel like they got a deal. Meanwhile, the negotiation between insurers, pharmacy benefit managers, and drug manufacturers happens in a system that most people never see, with rebates, formulary placements, and behind-the-scenes pricing adjustments that don't fully benefit the person at the pharmacy counter. The person without insurance, or with a high-deductible plan, sees the full price, and that price is not designed with them in mind. Why doesn't the US just cap drug prices the way other countries do? Most developed countries negotiate drug prices at the national level. A government health system or a national insurer has enormous leverage. They can say, give us a reasonable price, or we won't cover it at all. And that's a market of tens of millions of patients you lose access to. The US doesn't operate that way. Medicare, the largest drug purchaser in the country, was historically prohibited from directly negotiating drug prices, though that has started to shift in recent years. Private insurers negotiate individually, and the result is that the same drug can cost dramatically less in Germany or Canada than it does in an American pharmacy. This isn't a secret. It's just a policy choice that has survived a long time. Now, generic drugs exist for a reason. When a patent expires, other manufacturers can produce the same molecule. Prices often drop sharply, sometimes by 80 to 90%, because now there's actual competition. Multiple companies making the same thing, racing to offer lower prices to insurers and pharmacy chains. This is why a drug that costs $400 as a brand name might cost $12 as a generic once the patent falls. But generics only exist for older drugs. For newer medications, especially the ones treating complex conditions, rare diseases, or cancers, the patent is still active, the generic doesn't exist yet, and the price stays high, sometimes extremely high. There's also a category called specialty drugs, biologics, gene therapies, drugs that treat rare conditions where the patient population is very small. The math here is different. If only 10,000 people in the country have a disease, and you spent $1 billion developing a treatment, you can't spread that cost across a large market. The per-patient cost becomes enormous. Some specialty drugs cost hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. Whether that's justified or predatory depends on who you ask. Often, the honest answer is, it's both, depending on the specific drug. The contrarian thing worth saying here is this: not every high drug price is pure exploitation. Some genuinely reflect the cost and risk of innovation. But the pricing system in the US is designed in a way that makes it nearly impossible to tell the difference, because there's no required disclosure of R&D costs, no transparent relationship between what a drug costs to develop and what it costs to buy. The price is what the system allows, and the system allows quite a lot. What can a regular person actually do with this? The most practical thing is knowing what levers exist. Good RX and similar discount programs sometimes offer prices lower than what your insurance negotiates, worth checking before assuming your copay is the best number available. Manufacturer assistance programs exist for many expensive brand-name drugs, often income-based, sometimes more accessible than people expect. Asking your doctor specifically if a generic equivalent exists is a simple conversation that doesn't happen as often as it should. And when a new prescription feels financially impossible, it's worth calling the pharmacy back and asking, is there another form, another dose, another option that might fall differently on my plan? These aren't solutions to the system, they're small navigations within it. The $1 pill that costs $500 isn't a glitch. It's the output of a system built around patents, limited negotiation, opaque pricing, and a market where the person who needs the drug most has the least bargaining power. Understanding that doesn't make the prescription more affordable, but it at least tells you why you're standing there doing math at the pharmacy counter. And maybe the more useful question isn't just, why does this cost so much? It's, who decided that this is an acceptable way to price something people need to stay alive? That one's still being argued,